Hi guys, just after some advice, I had a wooden box CNC controller, which last year when I first I tried to put it all together, had a lot of issues, and had a break, came back, and now relearned everything I'd learned back then, and came across a few things that I realised I hadn't back then as well. So I've got a new box, done all the drilling, put the connectors, the power supply, Ethernet connection down here. I still got to do it. I've got to drill a hole for the USB lead to come out. Now this is just to check, have I done everything correct? To your feel free to criticise. I'm new to this and electronics, and as I say, what I've done so far, because I see I ain't got the power button, I ain't got the other switches yet, this is still work in progress. I've basically wired up the mains throughout and attached everything inside to the back panel. So here it is. Now, as you see, let's move that out of the way. Just stay there, right. Okay, so I've got the mains coming in, EMI filter. Now I read up about these ferrites, how you pronounce it, clamps, and they help filter out the EMI, the resonance, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. On that line, roughly. Brought a box of 20. So I've stuck them where I could really, not probably ideal places, but I've got miniature ones connecting to the stepper drivers. One for the 24 volt VFD control panel on the breakout board, and one for the UC400. Now what I've done, I've got 48 volt, 24 volt, 5 volt. I haven't connected the USB yet. I was going to ask people, have they simply plugged that straight into a computer or the mains via plug, or do they wire the cable into one of these somehow? And what I've done, the mains comes in, goes to this block here. I'll turn around. Now I was a bit tight for space, as you can tell, and so the mains splits off so that the 48 volts gets the power first, then it splits to the 24 volt, and finally the 5 volt. I understand it has to be in that order. You can't really tell because it's quite tight. Each one of these I've grounded, I don't know if you can see, with a copper wire straight to the back panel. The 48 volt is connected up to this splitter block, which I'll get down here, which I've got 48 volts for my DM542Ts. I believe that's what they're called. I believe I've got them in the right slot. Can't really. The plus V and the ground. I haven't turned this on. This is why I'm asking you guys for advice to make sure I've done everything correctly. This is just screwed on, just in position. It's not gone through. I made sure of that. Same with this one. I ran out of proper screws, so I've got a nasty big black one sticking through and just holding it onto the 5 volt. Hasn't protruded. Obviously I don't want to stab my own power supply. So Any faults, any suggestions? Have I done it correctly? Bearing in mind, the brown wire, which obviously I have to turn red, will eventually go up to the E-stop, the power supply, background. I think it's back into this. I can't remember if it goes through anything else. I have to go through my notes. But obviously that part isn't finished yet. I'm aiming to have the off switch, the E-stop. I was thinking of separating the VFD power wise link and the pump, but when I put it down to paper I would have 5 plugs in total. One for this, one for the computer, one for the VFD, one for the pump, and one for the vacuum. A bit excessive for my garage fuse box. So, as I say, I'm new to electronics. Will it still cause the same amount of... what am I trying to think of? I mean, the amperage, if I had the pump and the VFD connected in here, going to one plug compared to having 3 plugs plugged in separately. What's your advice? What's your opinion? I'm all ears. Hopefully I've done this correct. I'm not going to turn this on and blow my drivers or breakout board or use C400 just yet. I just want to make sure I covered everything correctly. As far as I can tell, apart from the UC400, because it's floating, everything's grounded to the back panel via the EMI filter, which is connected to the ground mains. Copper wire on each of these. These are bolted straight on. Now I might I mean the screw goes through. I don't know if that class is ground, or do I have to get a cable from the bob? Advice please on that part. And same with the stepper drivers. Are grounded as such just by simply being screwed directly onto the back panel, or do I have to wire a ground from these and link them to the back panel themselves? Also, does that class as being a large back panel a star earth point? Because originally in my wooden box I did have a screw linked to the ground which everything was connected to, but on this case I've got a large back panel which to my understanding is connected to ground, so the star earth screw, for example, is a bit irrelevant to put anywhere on here. Everything is already touched, and I don't want to make any ground loops with the filters. That's it for the moment, guys. Thanks for your time. As I say, advice appreciated. I did mess up, by the way, on the drilling part of making the holes, as I didn't expect that to be too close to this 24 volt. There is still a good centimetre gap between, and the wires I've got, instead of going in between, are going round, so there is a gap there. These cables are right at the base, so there's quite a chunk there. I asked about the USB, if it went into one of these instead of just going straight to the computer or a plug with the adapter, because I didn't like using all 3 of these in such a small compartment. I mean, luckily I originally was attempting just to have the 5 volt with the 48, and then realised I needed the 24 for a few things such as the spindle options, and just manage. As I see, it does fit, but I had to spin the connector just so it just fits past that. That's why these are so cramped up. I'm going to add 2 fans. I weren't too sure. I was going to put possibly one on the door facing directly on top of the stepper drivers. I don't know if that's best practice for coming in, this is, and the going out, either in this section here, I don't have space on the top, or an external one just sticking out. It might look a bit ghastly, but obviously the heat's going to build up this way. I want it either that way or that way, or again possibly out straight through the door. So when this is shut, I have my connectors, and obviously option B is one fan going in, one fan going out, or one fan going in, one fan coming out here. Yeah, thanks for your time, guys. Please let me know what you think, and cheers.